The sheer scale of ambition here is staggering. We've got cannons revolutionizing warfare, a monstrous 80-meter gunship taking shape under the MC's direct supervision. Imagine the logistics, the sheer audacity. And while this military might is being forged, Yu Yi is out there practically conjuring a new settlement from scratch, integrating entire tribes. The detail about the remnant tribe's assimilation, from census to carbide lamps, is just fantastic world building. What truly resonates is the MC's forward thinking beyond conquest, the deep dive into infant mortality, the plans for raising the age of adulthood, and the meticulous blueprint for a medical college, down to specific textbooks. It's not just about power, but about building a sustainable, thriving civilization. This meticulous planning for societal health and education, alongside the technological leaps, feels incredibly profound. With such foundations being laid, how will the Han tribe's future unfold against the established powers and the looming Xin-Modun alliance? The potential for both explosive conflict and societal blossoming is immense. New schools were set to open, and for that, territory and talent were both indispensable. You figured you might as well coordinate with the new city construction plan, set up several more campuses, and get it all done in one go. The Han tribe's population last year had shot up as if on steroids. Needless to say, for the border commanderies and counties, even in the hinterland commanderies and counties, newborns were crying their first cries, adding many new individuals to the count. Over in Kaiyuan Commandery, the newly incorporated grassland, folk alone contributed nearly 20,000. Weishan Commandery's administrator, Jiang Chi, had even exceeded his targets. The grand goal of 50,000 people was finally achieved. It was said there were still some recalcitrant tribes by the Great Lake that hadn't been brought into the fold, and you had already ordered, "Keep recruiting. Don't let a single one get away." Although the wild men brethren who came to Liuyang, commandery to work were fewer in number, the tribe's reputation was widespread. From time to time, people would come, drawn by this fame, and successfully gain official Han tribe household registration. As for Ruyang and Hanyang commanderies, those two front lines, they were practically specialists at poaching people. Bordering the outside world, they had frequent dealings with unfamiliar tribes, and there were always some tribes dazzled by the Han tribe's prosperous and exciting world who voluntarily joined. Especially in those few counties under Hanyang Commandery, their performance in recruiting wild men was off the charts. Combined with the children born to their own people, the population in two of those counties had already broken the 10,000 mark. Dongxin Commandery, far off at the edge of the world, was also flourishing everywhere under Jing Yan's management. His coal operations were thriving, he'd harvested a good amount of grain, and the newly recruited population surpassed all other commanderies, reaching over 30,000 in one go. But this wasn't surprising. After all, that remote place was still undeveloped virgin territory, teeming with tribes who hadn't seen the wider world. Wasn't that Yujiang clan of over 2,000 people found east of the Liuyang River? If a few more similar large tribes popped up, it would be no trouble at all. Finally, there were those remnant tribes newly incorporated by that young fellow Yu Ye out in the field. All told, they added up to over 7,000 people, and their numbers were still constantly growing. Making a rough calculation, in 2 years the Han tribe's newly added population had definitely exceeded 100,000. Counting the original inhabitants and newborns, the total population had already soared to 240,000 and was on the verge of breaking the 250,000 mark. Hey, this population growth rate was even faster than weeds. Actually, there was one more population group you hadn't counted, because they still hadn't submitted their household registers. That place was at the mouth of the Liuyang River, the temporary camp facing the Tang Tribe across the water. Back then, Yu and Yu Fu had planned together to build a beachhead by the sea and establish a forward base for oceanic expansion. They could. Tang Tribe's location was an incredibly auspicious spot, but the Tang Tribe was also a heavyweight of tens of thousands of people, Swallow them whole? Difficult. Directly seize their territory? Even less proper. Thus, for the sake of sustainable development, you turned your attention to the bank opposite the Tang Tribe. Last time Yu Fu returned laden with goods from Judao, Bamboo Island, he left a few dozen of his men and a ship there, tasking them with first cozying up to the Tang Tribe's sworn enemies, those smaller clans and tribes, to try and win a few over and establish a firm base of operations. There was no telling how those lads were faring now. You had even come up with a name for the place, Tuohai Commandery. Tuohai meant to pioneer the seas. How impressive. Now, you were just waiting for those few dozen advanced team members to make a breakthrough there, and then large-scale construction and infrastructure development could begin. However, what you never would have imagined was that at this moment, the Tuohai Commandery advance camp was long past being just a few dozen people. Instead, a bustling crowd of no fewer than 10,000 had gathered. This was the result of annexing 6 small clans in one go. They had now moved into the camp with their entire families. That old fox Yu Fu had a very sharp eye. The place was right next to the mouth of the Liuyang River, with ample freshwater resources and a natural waterway highway. Both banks were alluvial plains, the land so fertile it seemed to ooze oil. The forests were dense enough to hide tigers, and the flora and fauna were unbelievably abundant. Crucially, there was also iron ore. Whether for farming, developing industry, or building ships to fish at sea, that location was a gift from heaven, a place destined to provide a livelihood. Being by the sea, salt wasn't an issue either. Plus, with Judao not far away, proximity bred opportunity. Developing maritime trade would be a swift affair. To ensure this prized land could be firmly secured, Yu Fu had also spared no expense, dispatching one of his most capable commanders, an impetuous young fellow named Jiang Chi. This Jiang Chi had been recommended to Yu Fu by the Yujiang clan chief, who vouched for him wholeheartedly. Firstly, Yu Fu's nephew, Yu Ji, had married a girl from the Yujiang clan, making them relatives. Secondly, the Yujiang clan had joined only after being thoroughly sweet-talked by Yu Fu, so their relationship was rock solid. When an opportunity arose to earn merit, Yu Fu naturally thought of his in-laws, so the Yujiang clan chief put forward Jiang Chi, this uncut gem of a talent. This young fellow Jiang Chi was very clever. Ever since joining the Han tribe, whether learning new things or adapting to the environment, he was a whole lot faster than his peers from his own clan. The moment this guy witnessed the Han tribe's power, his mind clicked, and he immediately considered himself a true blue Han tribe member. Why? No other reason. The Han tribe was formidable, advanced, powerful. When you went out, you could hold your head high. With Yu Fu setting the stage for him to shine, Jiang Chi quickly began to distinguish himself in Yu Fu's fleet. And so, the heavy responsibility of leading the development of Tuohai Commandery landed squarely on his shoulders. Jiang Chi had gone to sea with Yu Fu, braved dangers, met all sorts of tribes, been to the Xin tribe on Judao, wandered the grasslands, and traveled through most of the Han tribe's territory. One could say he was a man who had seen the world, and his way of dealing with people also showed a shrewd cleverness. His methods for winning over those small clans, to put it bluntly, were simple and crude. But hey, they worked. First, he'd spend a little money to hire some local guides in the Tang tribe's territory, specifically seeking out small tribes that didn't associate with the Tang tribe. Then, leading his men, dressed in fine silks and satins looking incredibly flamboyant, they would make a dazzling entrance. For greeting gifts, he'd lavishly present silk, porcelain, steel knives, and even arcane texts that he himself couldn't fully decipher. Books. Then, he would begin his performance. First, he'd boast about the Han tribe to high heaven, how their manufacturing skills were divinely exquisite, their military might formidable and logistics efficient, their agriculture advanced with yields, per mu, a unit of land, exceeding 10,000, and their writing system all-encompassing, capable of recording anything. Anyway, he himself couldn't fully read what was written in those books, but nailing the imposing manner came first. After impressing the other party until they were dumbfounded, he would then enthusiastically invite the prominent figures of the tribe to board a majestic large sailing ship, go for a spin out at sea, and incidentally experience modernized fishing. Back at the camp, the freshly caught seafood would be cooked, its aroma filling the air. Then a couple of bottles of water of life, baiju, a strong spirit, would be set out. While feasting on meat and downing bowls of alcohol, he would passionately describe the grand blueprint for the Han tribe's future in Tuohai Commandery. The seafood was delicious, the alcohol hit the spot, the enticing vision of the future was complete. And then they'd look back at the seafood catch piled high as a small mountain on the ship. Tsk, tsk. Which tribal leader could resist such sugar-coated inducements? They'd decide on the spot. We're in. These tribal leaders' thinking was also very practical. First, the Han tribe had high grain yields and amazing farming techniques. This was their means of livelihood. Who wouldn't covet it? Second, the Han tribe could make all sorts of good things. Following them meant prosperity. Third, the Han tribe's animal husbandry was developed, with all kinds of livestock they had never even seen. Enough to make one drool with envy. Most crucially, the Han tribe knew how to build large ships. Even if they did nothing else, just by going out to sea to fish, they could feed their entire tribe well. This was real, tangible security, food. Just thinking about it made them drool. As for any differences in system or culture, those weren't major issues. Firstly, the Han tribe itself was a hodgepodge of many different clans. Their joining just meant a few more mouths to feed, easily accommodated, no big deal. This was similar to the Tang Tribe, which also had a multitude of clans. Secondly, most clans had a tradition of ancestor worship. If you didn't recognize your ancestors, how could you be a clan? This also harmonized with the Han tribe's ways. Also, the Han tribe's system of private ownership was not much different from their own customs. There wouldn't be much difficulty adapting if they joined. The final key point was the location of Tuohai Commandery. The place was just opposite the Tang Tribe, not far from their original homes. Even if they joined the Han tribe, they wouldn't have to drag their families across vast distances. They would still be operating in familiar territory. This point was most likely to persuade the common tribespeople. As long as they weren't moving to the ends of the earth, they were willing to relocate a bit. After all, their ancestors had lived on this land for so many generations. The grass on the graves of countless forebears was already several feet tall. If they weren't truly unable to survive, who would willingly leave their ancestral homes? Jiang Chi, relying on this comprehensive package of persuasion, demonstration, fine food, and painting rosy pictures, successfully won over 6 clans. However, for now, only a portion of them had moved to the camp. The new place, after all, was still desolate and couldn't accommodate so many people at once. So each clan had currently only sent some advance parties to participate in infrastructure construction. Once the houses were built, everyone would move over together and live a prosperous and bustling life. Those clan leaders weren't idle either. So that in the future, within the Han tribe, they could have a voice and stand tall with confidence. They also began to take the initiative, absorbing nearby wild men, or even smaller independent tribes to actively strengthen their own power. Setting other things aside for now, as long as their own tribe's population ranked high among the many newly joined clans. Then, when it came time to share the benefits, their voice would naturally be louder. In December, Kaiyuan Commandery was already a land of 1,000 li of ice and 10,000 li of drifting snow. But the Tuohai Commandery camp at the mouth of the Liuyang River was as warm as spring. The temperature was 12 or 13 degrees Celsius, perfect for a single layer of clothing. Very comfortable. But on the construction site, bustling with activity, most people were bare-chested, sweat dripping down like popping beans. Building. A new commandery city involved countless tasks. The most pressing was to build a wharf, even a temporary one, that could at least allow sailing ships to dock and unload cargo. After all, All supplies depended on it. The two most important matters for Tuohai Commandery right now were, first, to build irrigation works and reclaim fertile land. Second, to build houses and settle the people. There was more work than could be finished. Manpower wasn't an issue for the moment, but tools and equipment were severely lacking. When Jiang Chi reported this situation, you waved your hand magnanimously and told him to sail to the envoy station on Zhudao to solicit contributions. Earlier, in order to promote the Han tribe's currency on Zhudao, a lot of iron materials and craftsmen had been transported there. But now the Han tribe and the Xin tribe had fallen out, and the Xin tribe explicitly forbade the Han tribe from engaging in financial innovation on Zhudao. Those iron materials would just rust if left there. It was better to support the nearby Tuohai Commandery, keep the benefits within the group, so to speak. This way, Tuohai Commandery got experienced master craftsmen who could lead teams, and agricultural implements and tools were also secured. As for the oxen needed for reclaiming wasteland, you also issued a strict order to allocate them from Kaiyuan Commandery and ship them over as support. With these two established bases backing them up, the construction progress in Tuohai Commandery shot upwards rapidly. Those clan leaders who had already agreed to join watched as the Han tribe poured resources into this place as if they were free, and they were inwardly blooming with joy. What were they after? Wasn't it exactly this? Following the Han tribe meant there was food to eat, drink to be had, and a future to look forward to. Additionally, the climate in Tuohai Commandery allowed for grain cultivation even in this season. To enable the newly joined brothers and sisters to achieve food security sooner, you specially ordered that the reclaimed land not be divided up yet, but all planted and temporarily managed collectively. Once everyone had moved over, the land would be fairly and justly distributed to households, according to the number of individuals registered in their household books. A temperature in the teens Celsius, though not hot, wouldn't hinder the crops from growing. It just meant the growth cycle would be a bit longer. Whether crops ripened wasn't determined by the number of days, but by accumulated temperature. To put it plainly, once enough daily temperature had accumulated, they would ripen on their own. For example, if a crop needed an accumulated temperature of 3,000 degree days to mature in summer, with an average daily temperature of over 30 degrees, it could be harvested in 3 months. In spring, autumn, or winter, with an average daily temperature of around 15 degrees, one would have to wait 5 months. As long as enough temperature accumulated, the sickles could be brought out any time to start the harvest. On the plains, around Tuohai Commandery, vast tracts of land were reclaimed and planted with corn and rice. These two were the Han tribe's current highest-yielding staple crops, and also the miracle grains that the surrounding clans dreamed of planting. Poor Tang Tribe on the opposite bank could only watch helplessly and fret. Over in Tuohai Commandery, the corn and rice fields were a lush, vibrant green. Ridges and irrigation channels crisscrossed, dividing the fields into neat tofu-like squares. The row-planted crops in orderly lines and columns were a pleasing sight. Looking again at the Tang Tribe's wheat fields on the opposite bank, they were still using the ancient broadcast sowing method. At most, they'd turn the soil a bit, scatter a handful of seeds, then tread on them with their feet, and call it done. The scene was simply an eyesore. The Tang Tribe also produced iron, but unfortunately they didn't know how to smith it properly. The ironware they made was mostly crude lumps of pig iron. Their farm tools and implements were of that quality. They had also managed to cobble together man-powered plows, but compared to the Han tribe's cutting-edge louche, a type of seed drill, theirs were completely dwarfed. The louche was a farming marvel. Pour seeds into it, walk it along the furrows, and the seeds would be sown neatly into the soil. It even came with an all-in-one service of tilling and covering the soil. The benefits of the louche were absolutely top-notch. It sowed quickly, evenly, and saved seeds. For the same piece of land, using the louche saved at least half the seeds compared to broadcast sowing. It saved labor, effort, and seeds, reduced costs, and increased income. It was truly a blessing. For the farmers, of course, this alone wasn't the most significant thing. What made the Tang tribe on the opposite bank burn with intense envy was that the Han tribe actually had draft oxen. This clever maneuver of using large livestock to work for humans was something they, having lived there for hundreds of years, were seeing for the first time. Tell me, how could they not be green with envy? The two tribes were separated only by a river. Every day when work was in full swing in Tuohai Commandery, a large crowd would gather on the opposite bank, craning their necks to watch. Although they themselves didn't get any direct benefits, they couldn't resist the chance to secretly learn a thing or two. For example, digging irrigation canals to water the fields. They had never even thought of it before. Raising large livestock to help with labor also gave them considerable inspiration. Even the craft of house building, that they could actually fire clay into bricks and tiles to build houses. They themselves only knew how to fire clay into pottery. Since pottery could hold water, they wondered, why couldn't it be used for waterproofing? It was all pretty basic stuff, really, but once the Han tribe got their hands on it, it immediately looked sophisticated and impressive. Your family eats off plates? Ha! The Han tribe put their plates, roof tiles, right on top of their houses. How's that for you? Vehicles, those overland transport marvels, were also appearing in the Tang tribe's sight for the first time. Before, they were still using primitive methods like carrying things on their shoulders or backs. But the Han tribe not only made carts out of wood, they could even use oxen and horses to pull them. A person just had to sit on the cart and shout a few commands, and they could move over 1,000 jin, a unit of weight about 0.5 kilos of goods at once. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it, even if you beat them to death. But the Han tribe, they were just that amazing. Before the Han tribe settled here, they only came and went with a few boats. So this was the Tang tribe's first time witnessing the Han tribe's formidable strength in land transportation, and it practically made their jaws drop. Tang Ji, the leader of the Tang tribe, observed from across the river for a full 2 months before she finally couldn't sit still any longer. She actually had someone build a large bamboo raft and proactively cross the river to visit. The Han tribe had too many good things. She wanted to learn some, or perhaps buy some to take back. After inquiring around with the workers on the construction site, she learned that the Han tribe person in charge here was actually just a teenage lad. Although he was considered an adult, it still surprised her. A kid in his teens managing so many people. That was too much power. Moreover, with so many people already gathered here, why hadn't that legendary paramount chief of the Han tribe come to oversee things personally? Tang Ji pondered. That was the kind of person who was her equal in status. For her to proactively come and meet a branch leader just to learn a few things was already condescending, or so she thought. Is Chief Tang perhaps thinking I'm too green? As soon as Jiang Chi saw Tang Ji, before she could even speak, he preempted her with a smile. To be honest with you, our Han tribe's paramount chief is about the same age as me. We have about 10 other operations like Tuohai Commandery in the Han tribe. Next year, we might even open a few more new branches. So it's nothing unusual to be temporarily holding down the fort here. If Chief Tang feels it's beneath her dignity to speak with me, that's no problem. I'll arrange a ship right away to take you to our Han tribe headquarters to meet our paramount chief. I imagine our chief would be thrilled to bits to learn that the leader of a large tribe of tens of thousands like yours is gracing us with her presence. To tell you the truth, when he first heard there was a large tribe of tens of thousands here, he became incredibly curious about you, their chief. Jiang Chi's words were half truth, half bluff. Having been in the Han tribe for over a year and having followed you Fu on campaigns far and wide, he had a pretty good grasp of your grand ambitions. Knowing that the Tang tribe was such a juicy piece of meat, it would be strange if you weren't thinking about swallowing it whole. And those under you, like him, were also happy to engage in this kind of territorial expansion. The larger the Han tribe became under their efforts, the greater their sense of accomplishment, and they walked with a spring in their step. Oh, you can arrange for me to meet your chief? Upon hearing this, Tang Ji's eyes lit up with a hint of surprise. Absolutely. As long as you wish to go, I'll first write a letter to our chief to inform him, and then we'll formally send you an invitation. Jiang Chi's enthusiasm was as warm as a summer fire. Building the Tuohai Commandery camp right under the Tang Tribe's nose. If you said you had no designs on the Tang Tribe, not even a ghost would believe it. But what exactly you were planning? Whether peace or war, Jiang Chi couldn't guess. So he figured he might as well toss this hot potato directly to you to deal with. He'd act as a messenger in between, saving himself trouble and effort, and making it less likely he'd get into trouble. Isn't your Han tribe chief coming here? After all, with such a large new branch city being built, wouldn't he personally come to take a look? Tang Ji was still very curious. If something this significant happened in the Tang Tribe, it would absolutely be an earth-shattering event. She herself would definitely be overseeing it daily, perhaps even personally commanding operations at the construction site. But this paramount chief of the Han tribe didn't even show his face. He was being far too hands-off. How could subordinates like us presume to guess the chief's movements? Our chief is very busy, with countless matters to attend to, a pile of things waiting for his decision. Whether he'll come or not, I don't know. But this year, it's definitely not happening, Jiang Chi explained with a sincere expression. This put Tang Ji in a bit of a bind. She did want to go to the Han tribe to broaden her horizons, but the journey was just too far. Besides, she was the leader of a large tribe after all. She couldn't just abandon her tribe and be gone for months, could she? Considering all this, meeting you seemed more difficult than ascending to heaven. But now that they had proactively invited her, it was a rare opportunity and she was reluctant to give it up. What a dilemma. Seeing her expression change like a kaleidoscope, Jiang Chi knew what was on her mind and proactively offered a suggestion. If Chief Tang really can't get away, you could also send an envoy mission to meet our chief. You can select a few trustworthy and clever individuals and give them some authority to negotiate. If there's anything you want to discuss with the Han tribe, they can go and talk about it. As soon as Tang Ji heard this, her eyes lit up. That's right, there was this clever option of an envoy mission, sending a few reliable representatives to see for herself. That was a good idea, but who would be suitable to send? They had to be trustworthy, quick-witted, skilled in diplomacy, and most importantly, they couldn't disgrace the Tang tribe. Although the Tang tribe wasn't as powerful as the Han tribe, they were still a large tribe and face was important. Tang. She lowered her head and pondered for a long time, and indeed, someone came to mind. A graceful figure gradually became clear in her thoughts. Perhaps I'll send her. Tang Ji muttered to herself. The person who appeared in Tang Ji's mind was her own niece, Tang Yao. This Tang Yao was only 14 years old, just considered an adult in the Tang tribe. The young girl was very lively. In the tribe, she was universally loved, a real charmer who was never shy and could chat with anyone. In modern terms, her charisma was max. Moreover, the young girl was intelligent and clever, and she had a unique skill. She loved to tinker with flowers and plants, and had her own small garden filled with exotic flowers and herbs, including many medicinal ones. Her medical skills were also remarkable. She often treated tribespeople for free, so she enjoyed high prestige in the Tang tribe. Tang Ji was grooming her as a successor. If all went as planned, the next leader of the Tang tribe would almost certainly be her. Tang Yao had made significant contributions to the tribe, developing many useful medicinal materials and curing many tribespeople, thus establishing her prestige. Unfortunately, she was still a bit inexperienced, lacked a broad strategic perspective, and had virtually zero experience managing a large tribe. Tang Ji thought this would be a good opportunity to let Tang Yao go to the Han tribe to gain experience, broaden her horizons, and learn. If she could successfully negotiate a cooperation with the Han tribe and secure more benefits for the tribe, Tang Yao's prestige would undoubtedly rise to another level. By then, all the tribe's people would be grateful to her, and the position of the next chief would be pretty much set in stone. To put it plainly, this was a good aunt paving the way for her niece. From this perspective, the relationship between the aunt and niece was definitely solid, and Tang Ji felt at ease letting Tang Yao lead the mission to the Han tribe. Having figured things out, Tang Ji immediately made a decision, accepted Jiang Chi's invitation, and decided to send an envoy mission to the Han tribe. After saying, "I'll go back and prepare," she left in a hurry. However, when she returned, she did so in a small landing craft from the large sailing ship, which was much safer than her bamboo raft. Once Jiang Chi got the definite answer, he didn't delay either. He immediately found someone to write on his behalf, composing a long flowing letter. First, he reported on the construction progress in Tuohai Commandery. Then, he mentioned the Tang tribe's desire to establish diplomatic relations with the Han tribe, saying he had already invited them to send an envoy mission to the Han tribe headquarters to meet with you, asking for your approval, and if you had any requirements for the mission. Once the letter was written, it was immediately sent out via Falcon Express urgent delivery. And at this time, you weren't idle either. You were leading a group of the Han tribe's top leaders and your personal guard on a winter hunt in the plains and forests south of Ruyang and Liuyang commanderies. Hunting well, it was just an excuse. The main purpose wasn't military training. It was to gather your trusted followers from various places, get together, and strengthen relationships. Incidentally, it was also a chance to conduct a field survey of new territories. After all, the Han tribe was going to expand its territory again next year and establish new commanderies and counties. You were scouting locations in advance with your men. In the snowy landscape, hundreds of fine horses galloped, forming a huge, curved encirclement, driving a herd of large antlered deer towards the woods. This method of encirclement hunting had many advantages. The dense trees could trap the adult large antlered deer. Their magnificent antlers, usually a symbol of pride, now became their downfall. Meanwhile, the does and fawns, which either had no antlers or small ones, could slip away through the gaps. In the forest, as the saying goes, leave some leeway in doing things so you can meet again on good terms. The same principle applied to hunting. Selectively hunting only adult stags and sparing the does and fawns ensured there would be game to hunt next year, preventing the extermination of the entire population and giving the wildlife a chance to recover and reproduce. It didn't take long for the deer herd to be driven into the woods. Next, naturally, came the much-anticipated scavenging session. The freshly hunted large antlered deer were butchered on the spot. Attendants skillfully set up tents, arranged charcoal stoves, assembled folding tables, and lined up bottles of wine. Those who wanted roasted meat could help themselves, and there was plenty for those who preferred hot pot. You and the Han tribe's top leaders sat around, toasting each other and feasting heartily. The attendants also lit bonfires, gathering in small groups, roasting game meat and drinking wine, thoroughly enjoying themselves. You ladled several spoonfuls of deer meat and snowmelt soup, swimming with red chili oil, into your bowl, broke up the dry rations and flatbread you had brought, and soaked them in it. In your hand you were still gnawing on a sizzling, greasy skewer, eating with great relish. Everyone followed suit, their mouths greasy with oil, thoroughly enjoying themselves. Chief, it's been a long time since we hunted and ate meat so heartily, like today. This is truly satisfying. Shuda beside you took a bite of tender deer meat and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Oh, come on. I'd believe you if you said you've never hunted, but to say you haven't eaten meat? Do you think anyone here would believe that? Let everyone see how fat you've gotten in Kaiyuan Commandery these past 3 years. You glanced at him sideways, teasing him mercilessly. The surrounding Dashu, Yunji, Jingyan, Dali, Ying Rui, Yu Fu, and others all burst out laughing. Udo, whether it was the alcohol flushing his face or his pride being wounded, rubbed his round belly with a red face and grumbled in dissatisfaction. What can I do? Kaiyuan Commandery is stuck in the middle. Liuyang is to the east, Hanyang to the west, and Sifang County and Xingang Commandery are to the north. To the south, There's just a large forest, not even a single bird tribe. It's hard for me to even find something to do. After handling the commandery's official business, if I don't spend some time on food, how boring would that be? Oh, so you're saying you're not satisfied with your current position? Want to move around, get transferred out? You changed the subject, probing him. Actually, you were deliberately leading Shuda on. You were indeed considering moving him. Ruiyang Commandery was now on the right track, and keeping Shuda there was a waste of talent. When it came to managing a tribe, Shuda was also very capable. After all, he had been a chief before. Can I really be transferred out? As soon as Shuda heard this, his eyes immediately lit up, and his face turned even redder with excitement. Like a ripe apple. Of course you can be transferred. But where do you want to go? Tell me first. You nodded, gesturing for him to continue. The circle of leaders around them all looked at Shuda, their hearts skipping a beat, and they began to ponder secretly. It seems this winter hunt isn't simple. The chief is even going to move Shuda. Then what about themselves? Seeing everyone's gaze focused on him, Shuda seemed to realize the seriousness of the matter, knowing you weren't joking. So, he put away his playful demeanor and began to think seriously. After pondering for a moment, Jodi spoke. Chief, I've long heard Brother Yu Fu say that the fish in the sea are inexhaustible and exceptionally delicious. Since I'm to be transferred out, then let's just transfer me far away. Chief, let me go to the seaside. Didn't we just build Tuohai Commandery there? Or sending me to Judao would also be fine. I can bring back that fellow Shoya. That guy hasn't been home for 2 years, and his mother talks about him every day. You pondered for a moment, not answering immediately. Instead, you turned your gaze to Da Shu on the other side, staring at him with sharp eyes, and asked, What about you, Da Shu? Where do you want to go? Among the Han tribe veterans present, this fellow Da Shu was undeniably capable and the most steadfast in his work. He had an easygoing nature. Whatever you asked him to do, he would just buckle down and do it. Even if he wasn't good at it initially, he was willing to learn humbly. In terms of experience and time spent governing a region, Da Shu also had the longest tenure. After all, Liuyang Commandery was the first commandery separated from the Han tribe. He had been managing it since its establishment. One could say Liuyang Commandery grew up under his care. He had never thought that one day you would transfer him away, but if you really needed him to, he wouldn't have any objections. So this fellow very honestly said, I'll go wherever the chief sends me. The words were simple, but they conveyed a sense of loyalty and attitude. You nodded in satisfaction and said cheerfully, Good. In that case, I'll move both your and Shuda's positions. You two hand over your current work, and when spring comes, you'll go to… Screech, screech! Just as you were arranging new jobs for the two of them. A loud eagle cry suddenly came from outside the tent. Immediately after, a guard holding a message tube ran hurriedly to the tent entrance, reporting to the chief. A letter from Tuohai Commandery just arrived. Bring it here. Hearing it was from Tuohai Commandery, and since the new posts you were planning for Shuda and Da Shu were also in that area, you decided to read the letter first, lest some new issue cropped up right after you gave your instructions. The letter was quite long. You quickly scanned it. You were already aware of Tuohai Commandery's initial construction plans. After all, you had approved many of those matters yourself. The only thing that made your eyes light up was that the Tang Tribe had actually taken the initiative to seek cooperation. This matter, in fact, was also within your expectations. When you decided to build Tuohai Commandery opposite the Tang Tribe, you had already considered that something like this might happen. Doing so was precisely to seize the initiative at the negotiating table with the Tang Tribe, making them come to you. This way, you could control the terms of the negotiation. As for the purpose of the negotiation, needless to say. Of course, it was to find a way to swallow the entire Tang Tribe of tens of thousands of people. There was no reason not to be tempted by such a juicy piece of meat delivered right to your doorstep. However, them proactively sending an envoy mission was a bit unexpected. But that wasn't an issue. It was a perfect opportunity for them to come and witness the Han tribe's power firsthand. By then, you'd have even more leverage at the negotiating table. With so many good things in the Han tribe, were you afraid you couldn't reel in this big fish? As for how to annex the Tang tribe, you hadn't quite figured it out yet. In any case, you'd make contact first and see. After all, your understanding of the Tang tribe was still too limited. Having figured things out, you immediately had someone bring paper and a brush, and with swift strokes, you wrote a reply. You then had it sent back immediately via Falcon. Post. After finishing with the reply, you continued chatting with the people in the tent. The Tang tribe opposite Tuohai Commandery wants to cooperate with us. They've probably taken a fancy to our tribe's good stuff. It's not clear exactly how. We'll cooperate, but they're sending an envoy mission to our place for an exchange visit. They'll be arriving by boat soon. When the time comes, let them land in Kaiyuan Commandery. Dashu, you coordinate with the Court of State Ceremonial and handle the reception well. All right. I understand. Dashu agreed without a second thought. Then, let's talk about the position changes after the spring next year. The construction speed of Kaiyuan Commandery in the grasslands needs to be accelerated. Ying Rui, you will continue to be the administrator of Kaiyuan Commandery. Get those outer city walls up for me as soon as possible. I have reliable information that the Xin tribe and that fellow Xin-Modun are in cahoots again. It's highly likely they'll team up to target our Kaiyuan Commandery. So, in terms of defense, you better be on high alert and take this seriously. If the enemy dares to come, not only do you have to hold them off, but you also have to hit them hard. Cripple them. Let them know why the flowers are so red. Although our Han tribe is powerful now, we have a large establishment and high expenses. We'll be setting up new commanderies and counties next year, and both supplies and manpower are very tight. Therefore, we don't have that many resources to fight a protracted war with them. If we fight, I want it resolved in one go, clean and decisive. Also, headquarters will soon send a batch of new weapons to you. After dinner, you go with Dali to check them out and familiarize yourself. Then, take the weapons and men, and immediately return by boat. Prevent that fellow Xin-Modun from launching a surprise attack during the winter. And Dali, Xingang Commandery was just established not long ago. Don't move from your position for now. Focus on developing Xingang Commandery first. After giving instructions on receiving the Tang Tribe envoy mission, you then, without pause, arranged next year's work for Ying Rui and Dali. The two of them also immediately stood up, bowed, and responded affirmatively in clear voices. Yunji, you also go back and hand over your work. After the new year, go to Kaiyuan Commandery to take over as administrator. You changed the subject again, calling out another name. Yunji was stunned on the spot, as if struck by lightning. He never dreamed you would transfer him. He had just met the population target for Kaiyuan Commandery, and his seat wasn't even warm yet, and you were already moving him. Chief, Yunji's face instantly became as bitter as coptis root. What, you're not willing? Your eyes sharpened, staring at him like daggers as you asked. Yunji shivered in fear and quickly shook his head like a rattle drum. No, not at all, Chief. I didn't say I wasn't willing. I just wanted to ask, if I'm transferred, who will take over as administrator of Kaiyuan Commandery? Hearing him say this, your expression softened a little, and you continued. The administrator of Kaiyuan Commandery will be succeeded by the current magistrate of Sifang County. The Han tribe is developing and growing, and the grassroots officials below also need to be promoted and gain experience. You older batch of administrators, work a bit harder. For the next few years, go out and do some pioneering work. Those commanderies and counties that are already well developed can be handed over to the people below to practice with. As for the vacancy in Sifang County, just promote directly from the subordinate officials of Sifang County. Any shortage of clerks can be supplemented by selecting outstanding graduates from the schools. Hearing your explanation, Yunji became even more confused. Being transferred out, expanding territory, that was definitely a great opportunity to earn merit. But what was the meaning of transferring him to Kaiyuan Commandery, the very center of the Han tribe? Was this a promotion? No matter how he looked at it, it seemed like a demotion. How many people did Ruiyang Commandery have now? Could it compare to his Weishan Commandery, which was bursting with population? Thus, he felt a bit unhappy and directly asked, "Chief, since it's about expanding territory, shouldn't I also be transferred outwards? There isn't much left to develop in Ruiyang Commandery, is there?" "Who said that? I'm transferring you to Ruiyang Commandery, not for you to research how to make delicious food. What I value is your ability to attract people. After you arrive in Ruiyang Commandery, not only must you comprehensively take over all affairs of Ruiyang Commandery, but you must also establish 2 new subordinate counties for me within the next year. I won't give you a single extra soldier or man. Don't even think about taking anyone from Weishan Commandery. However, during this period before spring, if you can attract another batch of people from outside, however many you bring, I'll let you bring that many to Ruiyang Commandery. How large these 2 new counties can develop, and whether Ruiyang Commandery can become our Han tribe's largest commandery, will depend on your, Yunji's, abilities." You once again dropped a bombshell, throwing out a new game rule for Yunji. This was clearly an attempt to squeeze his people-attracting skills dry. However, Yunji also knew he had no power to object and could only grit his teeth and agree. Moreover, he immediately got into character and started calculating where he could go to recruit some more population. At the same time, he couldn't help muttering to himself, "This chief is too ruthless, not giving him a single person and expecting him to conjure up 2 counties out of thin air, and only giving him a little over 2 months to recruit people. Isn't this deliberately making things difficult?" But he carefully counted on his fingers, and hey, he really could recruit a lot more people from around the Great Lake. Could it be that the chief had calculated all this? Then the chief is too incredible. The more he thought about it, the more terrifying it seemed. This fellow Yunji was ambitious, not one to be content with a quiet life. Since Weishan Commandery was already developed, you naturally couldn't let him continue to operate there. Otherwise, it would be genuinely hard to say who Weishan Commandery would listen to in the future. You paid him no more mind and continued arranging the transfers. Dashu, you also go back and hand things over. After the new year, proceed to Tuohai Commandery to assume the post of administrator. There are abundant population resources there, as well as other resources. After you arrive, you must establish Tuohai Commandery for me as soon as possible. A new shipyard is also to be built there, and it just so happens you're quite familiar with shipbuilding. This time when you go, I'll also let you take a batch of shipbuilding craftsmen with you. Also, once you're in Tuohai Commandery, you must pay attention to geopolitical relations. Apart from maintaining peaceful coexistence with the Tang Tribe for the time being, you can find ways to absorb other clans and tribes that do not belong to the Tang Tribe into Tuohai Commandery. Yes, I understand, Chief. Dashu, still as concise as ever, agreed crisply. Chief, what about me? What will I do? Weren't you saying you were going to transfer me to Tuohai Commandery? Am I going to Judao to take over Shoya's post as an envoy? Shuda had been listening from the side for a long time. It had started with talk about him, but then everyone else had been assigned, and he was left out. He was feeling quite dejected. Yu glanced at Shuda, grinned, and said, "You? After you and Yunji have handed over your work, you'll go and assume a military post." A military post? Shuda was stunned again, his eyes wide. That's right, you're going to assume a military post. You're going to establish our great Han's first navy, the Fubo Guard. You will be the first commander of the Fubo Guard. Under you will be the Fubo Fleet. The flagship will be that 4-masted giant ship with 120 cannons currently being built in the Luoyang Commandery shipyard. In addition, there will be 4 3-masted ballista ships, 4 2-masted landing ships, and 1 3-masted comprehensive supply ship, a total of 10 ships forming the Fubo Fleet. You will report directly to me. You will not be subject to the control of anyone else. Shuda, who was already somewhat portly, trembled with excitement upon hearing this. The Han tribe's first navy, and that giant cannon warship, hailed as the Han tribe's most powerful weapon, a mobile fortress on the sea. The chief had actually arranged such an incredibly prestigious position for him. This was like a pie falling from heaven.